I just want to remind you, make sure you don't miss the closing. His Excellency, the Prime Minister, is going to be here. The app challenge during the closing session. 3 schools will be awarded during that session in the presence of His Excellency, the Prime Minister. It is a lot of fun. We're going to move on now to our next session. Just want to make sure our speakers are here. It's on women angel investors. So if you ask any entrepreneur almost anywhere in the world what his or her biggest problem is, they're most likely to tell you it is access to capital. But where does this extra capital come from? Women control $14 trillion of wealth assets, and this is estimated to grow to $22 billion by 2020. In 2013, accredited angel investors directly invested $24.8 billion into nearly 71,000 early-stage companies, according to estimates by the Center for Venture Research at the University of New Hampshire. Only 13% of all angel investors in the US are women, but this is changing. There were fewer than 20,000 female angel investors in 2005, but that number increased to nearly 58,000 by last year. For this discussion panel, we are pleased to be joined by 5 angels, world-class panelists. We have Heather Hennion, Iman Mutlaq, Daphne Kiss, and Hala Thomas-Dotter. And also moderating this panel is a woman, Shelley Porges, who serves as the National Finance Co-Chair for the Ready for Hillary PAC, encouraging Hillary Clinton to run for president in 2016. She is also a global strategy and marketing expert focused on entrepreneurship, partnerships, and business development for several non-profit and profit organizations.
Well, thank you very much, and welcome everyone. And may I invite those of you who are sitting up there, especially all the wonderful men, thank you very much for joining us, to move down so that we can have a more concentrated conversation, because we will welcome your questions in the last half of the session here today. I'm very excited to be here today. Salam alaikum. And I wanted to ask you, imagine if all the GDP of China plus all the GDP of India were controlled by women to spend and invest on things that are important to us. Well, forget about China. Forget about India. Because today women control, as you've just heard, that was an intro that I wrote. I didn't know it was going to be read here today. But forget about them, and because women control, like you just heard, $14 trillion of assets, growing to its estimated $22 trillion by 2020. Forget women's empowerment. We have power. If you think about the assets we control, we already have power. But the key question is, how do we choose to use it? Today we're here to discuss, as you know, you're here to discuss women angel investing, the changing face of early stage funding. Now, you've heard my background, so I don't have to repeat that. And we have an outstanding panel from the region and the world to lead the conversation. But before I turn it over to them, let me just share a few things that, some of which you've heard a little bit about. But though angel investing is just one way entrepreneurs fund their startups, after investing their own capital and sometimes that of their friends and family, and potentially crowdfunding, which I know is becoming a very big factor here in the region, it has played a key role in early stage funding in other places. In 2013, accredited angel investors directly invested almost $25 billion into nearly 71,000 early stage companies, according to estimates by the Center for Venture Research at the University of New Hampshire. That's in the US. Now 13%, 13% of all angel investors in the US are women, and it is growing. The number of angel investors is also on the rise all over the world. One angel investment platform, a very popular one, Gust, claims to have 1,000 investment groups in 80 countries. Another, Keiretsu Forum, has over 1,100 accredited investors and 34 chapters on 3 continents. And women are becoming much more of a factor globally. Now, why should we care about this? Women are running an increasing number of startups, and In the US today, women make up 20% of both entrepreneurs, new entrepreneurs, and investors involved in angel deals, up from single digits a decade ago, thanks to some of the women on this panel. So, now, you've heard that women make up 23% of all entrepreneurs seeking angel capital, up from 9% in 2015. So the number of women angels is growing, the number of women entrepreneurs is growing, but of course women angels don't only invest in women-founded firms. So this should matter to all you men who are entrepreneurs as well. How many of you are entrepreneurs in this audience? So we have both male and female entrepreneurs in the audience. So hopefully this new trove of potential new financing is the reason why you're here. And according to a study done by Goldman Sachs, closing the funding gap, particularly for women-owned SMEs across the developing world as a whole, could boost income per capita growth rates by over 110 basis points on average. Now, while eliminating the whole gap is a tall order, the impact on growth could be dramatic. So for all these reasons, it's very important for us to look at why, and how will we grow angel networks. And today's question really is, how can we grow the women's angels, and how can we attract more women here in the region to this activity? So let me introduce our distinguished panel. To my left here is Daphne Kiss. Daphne is the managing director for Golden Seeds, an angel network that invests in women-led companies. Golden Seeds is the third largest angel network in the U.S., with hubs in New York, Boston, San Francisco, and Dallas, and I will let her tell you more about it as she gets to speak. But I wanted to let you know that Daphne is a leader in global technology, venture, and entrepreneurial circles, with nearly 30 years of expertise taking early-stage entrepreneurial ideas through many phases of raising capital, business development, and clarifying and executing on strategy. She spent 18 years as the president and CEO of EdVenture Holdings until it was acquired by CNET Networks, a public company, in 2004. And then as a private equity investor since 1992, she was a founding partner in EdVenture Ventures, an early-stage venture capital fund focused on burgeoning Eastern European technologies. Since then, she's invested in and nurtured more than 25 startup enterprises, many of which have led to stellar growth and successful exits. So we're really excited to have Daphne here. Next to Daphne is Iman Mutlak. She is our local Jordanian, so we're very excited to have her on the panel. We have obviously a lot of other local Jordanians in the audience, and Iman is the CEO of Sigma Investments and Ingap Brokers, a group of multinational financial companies that operate out of 57 offices in 25 countries across 6 continents. So she is a one-woman multinational. Iman, who was born in Saudi Arabia, is a dynamic leader and expert in financial markets who was recently named by Jordan Business as one of the 10 most powerful women in Jordan. She's also an angel investor at supporting women technologists here in Jordan, among her many initiatives supporting women in the region. And last but not least, I want to mention that she was invited by President Obama, among the few entrepreneurs from the Middle East, to attend an inaugural White House Entrepreneurship Summit in 2010, where she met also former U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, my former boss, and the late Ambassador Richard Holbrooke, to discuss ways to accelerate women's empowerment in Afghanistan and across the Middle East. So that was my second week of work. I was there. I regret that we didn't meet, but I'm glad to know that you were there. Next is Heather Henyon. Heather is our hybrid on the panel, and she has a phenomenal background. She has been doing work. She is from Dubai, founder and managing partner of Balthazar Capital, a microfinance investment advisory firm for the Arab region. And she is also the founder of WAIN, which stands for Women Angel Investment Network, for the region's first women angel network. And so we're very excited that she has stepped up to that kind of a challenge and that kind of an opportunity here, and will represent that. She's a socially motivated finance professional who's lived and worked in the UAE, Egypt, Lebanon, and Palestine over the last 15 years. Prior to launching Balthazar Capital, she was the founding general manager of Grameen Jamil, a pan-Arab microfinance social business jointly owned by the Grameen Foundation and Abdul Latif Jamil Group. Under her leadership, Grameen Jamil originated, structured, and closed $44 million in leveraged commercial debt financing for microfinance institutions in Syria, Jordan, Egypt, Morocco, and Tunisia. So as you can see, all of our panelists here have deep experience, and we are very excited to have you, Heather. Thank you. And finally, last but certainly not least, is my good friend Hala Thomasdottir. Hala is from Iceland, and she is the founder and lead partner for Sisters Capital, based in Denmark, a firm that brings its portfolio companies financial, human, and social capital to help accelerate their growth and performance. Sisters Capital was founded, if I may say this, Hala, if I'm not stealing your thunder, on the principle that better balance is at the heart of delivering returns, even as one deploys more traditional approaches such as thorough financial analysis, strategies for growth and improved profitability, clear performance indicators, prudent financial management, and using all resources effectively and efficiently. Hala received the Cartier Women's Initiative Award for Outstanding Women Entrepreneurs in Europe, given by Cartier in cooperation with McKinsey and INSEAD, and was also a speaker for TED Women Conference in 2010. In March 2011, Newsweek named her one of the 150 women who shake the world. And having known her since her Cartier days, since I'm a Cartier judge, I can assure you she does. So with that, please welcome our panel. And I'm going to ask them each to say just a few minutes introduction about what they've learned. You can hear that they have a range of experience with a range of geographies, what their key learnings were from their experiences in the Angel Network. And then I'll ask questions you may have about women angels and how do we encourage more women in the region to engage in this important activity. So I'm going to ask Daphne to start, please.
Thank you, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. It's been a wonderful, wonderful 3 days learning about Jordan and the entrepreneurial environment that you're all building, an ecosystem. It's great.
Lean
Lean close, lean in.
Lean in.
That's it.
Lean in.
I'd say we've been leaning in for a long time. So I just want to take a minute and tell a little bit more about what Golden Seeds is. Golden Seeds, as Shelley said, is an angel investing group based in the United States. Is active, particularly active in New York, in Boston, in Silicon Valley, and in Texas. And soon we'll have more presence in Southern California as well. It has over 300 members and has invested over $70 million in enterprises that are led, in which women have a significant equity stake and are in the C-suite. Their portfolio has, over its 10 years, has had over nearly 68 companies, I believe, in the portfolio, and now currently there's 49 companies in the portfolio. And as an angel group, people participate. They pay a annual membership fee, and there's a capital commitment expectation, annual expectation. The organization has seen over 2,500 applications during its time, and has a very well established process for both screening companies and then presenting them at its forums, and when there is sufficient interest, going through a very well-established due diligence process. The group has over 20% of the group are men, and as you'll hear again and again in this panel, based on the principle that diversity makes better companies, which has been proven over again in young enterprises and mature enterprises. And that, as an investment thesis, is what motivates pretty much everyone in the group, as well as the social mission. The companies that are invested in are not per se social enterprises, though there are certainly some that have more of a double bottom line, one could say. But I think there is a general feeling that in some way supporting businesses in which women have the opportunity to create and build wealth and then sort of pay it forward is in and of itself a social enterprise. So I'll take one moment and say, as Shelley said, I've had a long career in the world of technology. When my partner and I sold our company and then finished an earn-out, having been in the world of technology for a very long time, I had the experience of having been the only woman in the room many, many times, and came across awesome women who weren't getting the forum that they needed to have their ideas come forth be recognized, be nurtured, be funded, and have the opportunity to grow. And so at the time, it was in the early days of Golden Siege, which was formed by a group of women who came more from the corporate world than I did, but had had the experience where they hit the glass ceiling, had been exceedingly successful, but decided that the only way to really have an impact was to leverage the kind of wealth that is out there that women have by building separate entities that supported and nurtured women moving forward. And it was a very compelling thesis and still is, and has driven the organization for a long time. And the reason to be involved is surely capital, but the other reason that has been really, really important is that when you put a group of people together who have experience and a range of experience, the exponential opportunity to leverage those resources is enormous. So that rather than being just a lone practitioner, this was an opportunity to create an environment in which all the resources could be leveraged. And I think we'll talk about that some more. So, thank you.
Indeed. Thank you so much. Great. Iman, could you tell us a little bit about what you've learned in your deep business experience and also in supporting women as an angel?
Actually, hi, thank you very much for having me here. I'm proud and so happy to be with you. And thank you for coming. Actually, it started with me since I was 6 years old. I born in Saudi Arabia, and I lived there happily. My dad passed away when I was 6 years old. And that was the point where I discovered that there is a difference between men and women. And that minute for me was like, pause. No, we cannot go out anymore. We have to stay because I don't have brothers, and that was 1966. It's like 48 years ago, so it's like, and at that age or that time, it's not allowed for women to drive. It's not allowed for women to go out. No, no, no. And it's turned for the small garden that we have to become a jungle because no one can enter our house. And that was the big question raised at that time, which is why things changed after my dad passed away. And I was asking my mom. My mom said, because we don't have a brother, we don't have uncles, and it's all about men, men, men. Then I was thinking, why? Isn't it all we have the same soul? Isn't it all we have the same dreams? Isn't it all we have the same things that we want to achieve in our life? What's the difference between men and women, or girl or a boy? And by time, what I did is I was just proving that I can. I can work more than man. I can do more than man. I can make money. I can make success. I can build companies. And wherever I reach, I was looking higher and higher. I want to reach like any man can reach. Then I started to find out that there is a woman who really need this help. They don't have this opportunity, someone just to guide them, because they have inside themselves the same dream, the same everything. So we started in 2007. I went with IHV to Iraq, and we supported more than 5,200 something women in Iraq. That was the time of war, and no one knows about them, no men around them. All of them are widows and divorced, and they are just with the kids out of nowhere, and no one is helping them there. So I start to feel the joy of helping women to discover the talent that she has inside herself. Not taking a power from man at all, but supporting the woman to be or to have the same power. So she can raise the children, she can be responsible for the families that she has. And after that also, we went more and more and more, and now we are having a project for 400 women that we are empowering in Iraq, also by educating them and by giving them chance to discover what they have inside themselves. Then after that, we decided to go more and to have any woman that they have that believe in themselves, and they have their dreams, and they have the most important, the will to be, and to encourage them just to be by their own. How to be by their own? And just to support them, not financially, as much as mentoring them, supporting them emotionally more than financially. We started with our first company, Dream Tech, doing mobile apps and doing amazing work. I have here my two partners, Amal and Maha, and I'm so proud of them, and I know that it will be not about the companies that I have, but this company is my new baby, and I'm sure 100% it will be the most successful company in Jordan and in the MENA area. So our plan also not only to have only one company, so in the coming 2 years we will be having another 15 company, Women Angel. And that's it. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks for sharing your story. That was really powerful. I appreciate that. Thank you. Heather, can you tell us about what you've learned in your years as a investor, entrepreneur, social entrepreneur, and angel?
Maybe I'll just provide some background on Wayne and how it started. I've worked primarily in the microfinance industry for the last 10 years, and how many people know what microfinance is? Okay, so Jordan, it's a big industry now, so probably everyone knows about it. But basically, it's really about access to finance and creating access to finance for low-income people and creating financial literacy for people who might not have had the education to learn how to borrow or lend or invest. So I was working on a mobile money company in Jordan, actually, and it was to provide a lending platform for microfinance clients, virtual. And I had two angel investors, one from London and one from Dubai. And I started looking around the region and just kind of wondering, where are the angel investors? How active are they? Which companies and startups are being supported by angels? And realized that there weren't that many, and they were primarily men. And because they're the names that many of us know in the kind of entrepreneurial community, they're limited in the amount of time and energy that they can give to the companies that they've invested in. And this to me is a big part of being an angel, and really what I benefited from the most from having two very active angel investors in this company. They open up their networks, they make introductions, they help you with fundraising, they take you out for a drink when things aren't going very well, which is pretty often in sort of early days. And they're just there to help you, support you, and be a sounding board for different ideas and different ways that you might pivot during your entrepreneurial journey. So I went to a group of women who are friends in Dubai, and Rama Shikaki is here, so I can mention her. She's one of our members. And I said, do you want to try this and create a group of women angel investors who invest in women-led companies? And they said, yeah, let's see. I mean, we don't know, we hear all these numbers that there are all of these startups that are women-led, but we don't know what's the quality of them. Are they investable? Are they cupcake shops, which are great, and I love cupcakes, but they're not scalable, so it's hard to invest equity in a cupcake shop and then get a decent return from that. So we actually just informally sort of leveraged our networks, asked for some companies who are women-led. By women-led, I mean a woman who has a sizable amount of equity in the company, so is likely a founder and also a member of the C-suite, so it can't just be kind of a token woman company. And we got over 50 women who applied, who were amazing, a lot of tech companies, and this was just through sort of an informal process. We went through pitching and then due diligence and all of the things that angel groups do, and just really enjoyed it. We also had learning modules because this was new for a lot of the women in our group, and that helped us to become kind of more knowledgeable angel investors. And through this, it's been an amazing journey. I think we've realized there are a lot of great women-led companies out there, and there's been some discussion around pipeline. Are there good companies that are investable? And I believe that there are many, many companies, many startups that need angel capital in the Middle East that are not receiving it. So I would really like to see more angel investors, both men and women. And I hope that more people will get involved. You don't have to be an ultra high net worth, sheikha or sheikh to do this, but you need to have time to spend helping the entrepreneurs is not just about cash, it's really about mentoring, coaching, but also being prepared to spend time, because that's part of the investment. It's not just cash, and that's what entrepreneurs probably need more than even cash, especially at the early stage level. So I think I'll close on that, and then I'm sure there will be more questions or more discussion during the Q&A period.
Great, thank you so much. Thanks for those insights. So what we've got here is a couple of different thoughts about what motivates angels, I think. Here we heard that there was a group of women who had the financial experience and were looking for a way to take their history and apply it to a way that not only created returns for them, but really helped create a new ecosystem or a growing ecosystem among women. We understand that part of what motivates all angels, I think, is their passion for the entrepreneurs that they're investing in, not just the ideas of the entrepreneur, but the entrepreneurs themselves. And then Heather brought out the fact that, angels clearly are not just about money, but they're really about smart capital, which means that they provide, almost as importantly, perhaps more importantly even than the money itself, is the guidance, the networks, the connectivity that most early stage first-time entrepreneurs lack. And so, we understand that there are a lot of, key benefits here. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Hala and ask her to give us some thoughts on what she's learned in her time in the investment space, which is not just in the angel space, really, but also in private equity.
Yes, I'm very happy to be here. It doesn't take a lot of sun to make an Icelander happy, and you have a lot of that renewable energy here. So I've just been smiling since I got here, and also with the warmth and hospitality of all of you people. So I really love Jordan. Thank you for having me. I have spent much of my professional life trying to encourage women to become entrepreneurs, leaders, and investors. And it would be easy for you to think that I do this as a woman, and I do it because I'm a woman. But actually, that's not where I started. I started because I had the interest to really fuel the Icelandic economy when I returned after 10 years in the US back to my home country. And I really believed, based on my experience in the United States, that the way to really fuel an economy is to use all of its resources. And today, I actually call women the largest renewable resource of the country of Iceland and much of Scandinavia, because it's actually economic power that we're talking about, and we're talking about driving business. I have learned now that it's also a lot about positive impact, and when you empower women, you also get the extra benefits. You make more money and your economy grows, but you also actually build better society. So I've learned now that it's also about the positive impact, and today I primarily invest in what I call double or triple bottom line companies. I really like to see the economic profit. It needs to be there. That's part of sustainability. But I like companies that are also contributing to the communities or to people and the planet. I don't think you can be in business today if you don't respect the environmental issues that we all need to solve. So I learned this from an early career experience in the United States. So I worked for Mars Incorporated, the people that brought us M&Ms and Snickers and a lot of other good things that may not contribute, contribute to my middle line, certainly. But it's a family-owned company. It's one of the largest owned family companies in the world. And one of the things that I learned from the owners of the company is that when we wanted to grow, build a new factory, change the capital equipment in the company, or build a new packaging machine, they always asked us, can you run that machine 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a week? And we would never get approved to spend money on that capital investment unless we could say yes. And so I started thinking about that because I was working in human resources, and I've really always been into people, and I always say I invest in people and purpose and passion. But basically, we don't ask the same of our people. And if I allow myself for just a moment to take a macro view on the angel investment and why it matters and why empowering women matters, it's because it kind of is silly to really invest a lot of money into educating people and then not tap into them to get them to create businesses, to get them to create jobs, and get them to create economic growth. So it really is wasted resources to me. So this is very much an economic and a business case, and I want to tell you from all of my experiences working on this issue from so many angles, mostly in the Nordic countries where we have a bit of a different culture and gender balance is at the top of the, well, Iceland is number 1 6 years in a row in closing the gender gap and empowering its women. I want to tell you about the 4 things that I think that matter. And I'll tell you quickly, and then hopefully we can go into them a little bit more. I think you have to start with growing the pipeline. And to me, growing the pipeline is about 2 things. You have to grow the number of women that are engaged in building growth businesses. So not just lifestyle businesses. Self-employment is fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It's a valid choice, but that isn't going to fuel job creation and economic growth. So growth businesses. And then you have to build the pipeline of angel investors. Because otherwise we're not going to build a lot of new businesses. Early stage capital needs to be built. And I think you can do this with women, and you can really build, because this is a self-fulfilling ecosystem. And sometimes people think it's just about access to capital. My experience has been it's about great businesses. Great businesses attract capital, believe me. Money always smells good businesses. So second thing I would say that you need to do is grow I want to call it competences and confidence. And the quickest way to grow the confidence of women is through competences. And now I'm not talking about technical competences. What I've learned in the couple of days I've been here, there's a lot of technical competence in Jordan. You have engineers, you have doctors, you have pharmacists, you have great technical competences. But maybe a focus on teaching entrepreneurial skills more aggressively, leadership skills, business skills, commercial skills, being a salesperson. I mean, a lot of great technical ideas never go anywhere because nobody can sell them from selling it to the angel investor. The third thing I want to talk about is changing the face of finance. Whether we like it or not, people invest in people who look like them and feel like them and smell like them. That's just a fact. It's well documented in research, and it's certainly been my experience. And when I say change the face of finance, I don't think in Europe we still just have 5% of angels are women now. So I think there's a lot of untapped resources and a lot of capital that can be tapped in there still. We still have our work to do there, just as you do here. But I also mean, when I say changing the face of finance, that I think we need to, men and women can participate in changing the language of finance. The language of finance is alienating to most people, to be honest, but particularly to women. And so I think working more with feminine values, which I think are actually what the current world calls for, is to really bridge the world of entrepreneurs and business leaders and capital. Last but not least, I'm going to mention something that's probably going to be politically sensitive here, but you can't do any of this if you don't work on changing the culture. And I have found in many countries that I have been working within that there is either a culture that appreciates entrepreneurship and creativity and innovation or not. And a culture that doesn't appreciate mistakes and doesn't look at them as learning experiences and blames people, or a culture where people feel ashamed for being entrepreneurs that of course will fail as much as they will succeed. As a matter of fact, they will fail a lot more than they will succeed. Is not a supportive culture of entrepreneurship. So I would really explore this part of your culture if you really want to get an active entrepreneurial and investment environment going in this country. The second thing I would talk about openly is our gender issues. Whether we like it or not, there are so many unconscious biases. When we think of an entrepreneur, most of us think of a man. When we think of a leader, most of us think of a man. When we think of an investor, most of us think of a man. And frankly, man, it's 97.3% of all of the capital in the world, so no wonder. So I think we really need to talk about the culture of this, because it's not about men versus women. It really is about using the economic, the human capital here to create economic growth, to bridge the fact that you have 30% unemployment today. You need jobs. You have the technical skills. But I think if you tackle those 4 issues, to me, you have a very bright future ahead of you, because you have great people, and everybody I've seen here wants to do this.
Thanks, Hala, very much. For those of you who might be wondering, Hala is actually an Icelandic name, but you know, it's nice that it's also a regional name, so she was feeling very welcome. And I think the other thing that made us all feel really great is all week long we've all been introduced as the angels, like Charlie's Angels. So, and I can assure you, my husband would not agree, but that said, I'm going to go home and tell him I was called an angel all week long. But anyway, all kidding aside, Hala just gave us a great framework for thinking about what we, the full frame of thinking about the ecosystem here in the region and what needs to be changed. But just coming back in on honing on the aspect, this particular aspect, and recognizing that, of course, it's not just about women angels, it is about all these other things that you touched on. But coming back to the notion of, getting a greater understanding of what does it take for us to recruit more women who've got the resources, since we know there are women with resources and so forth. I'm going to ask Daphne to comment, because I think all over the world, Golden Seeds, for those of you who may not know, has really come to have a reputation, not just for being the biggest in a very short amount, they're the third largest in the U.S. again, not only for being the biggest, and not only for investing significant capital, over $70 million over that time in many deals, but really for one of the most disciplined investors in the angel world. The angel world is not necessarily known for discipline. The angel world is often a very personal thing. It's not to say that angels don't have financial knowledge. It's not that they don't apply analysis and increasingly best practices. But the reality is, many people, perhaps you know some of them, perhaps you're one of them, we invest in, I'm an investor, we invest in people we know, business ideas we like and so forth, not necessarily the discipline, whereas Golden Seeds has had that. So I'm going to ask Daphne to just say a few words about how do you build a successful network, and what are the measures of success? What should, as we're trying to build out angel networks here in the region, in Jordan, what's going to be necessary?
Well, yes, I think that it is true. One of the things that Golden Seeds benefited from is indeed women who came, men and women, who came from successful careers where they had business skills. But angel investing is its own sort of discrete discipline, and its own asset class, as it were. And so one of the things Golden Seeds has done is we have a knowledge institute. We've taught that. I've taught that program in Tunisia. I've taught it in Egypt. A series of 101, 201, 301 that is locally adapted, but basically speaks to the question of how to structure a deal, how to assess a deal, how to look at business plans, how to set up agreements, shareholder agreements, founders agreements, term sheets, how to serve on boards, governance, issues around what it means sort of to stage through the stages of investing in a deal, which ideally, if one has made good choices, is followed by a Series A and a B and a C, and in which angels may or may not participate. So we heard this at other panels and in other discussions throughout the last few days, the Endeavor Breakfast and so on, that the regrets that people have that there weren't clear guidelines at the outset between founders or when capital was taken in. So that's one of the things Golden Seeds did early on, and it was actually motivated by developing another level of financial literacy for its members. Because here you have people, and to the point that was made, there are women who have in the world a huge amount of wealth. They are accustomed to perhaps having built that in certain kinds of traditional businesses and in being philanthropists. But the idea of investing in something that is a different kind, is sort of somewhere between their traditional business investments and philanthropy, where people, so interestingly, are willing to just give money away and without expecting a particular kind of return, maybe a plaque on a building or something of that sort, or their name in the program. But somewhere in between that, there is this other investing, this other asset class that allows people to express their passion and what they care about and what they want to see grown. And surely what we've seen here in the last few days is that people really want, there are the raw resources here to develop really an entrepreneurial environment in which great ideas turn into successful businesses. So it's that kind of background. And I just want to, in that sense, the other thing that comes from that is then a community and peer-to-peer support and a set of skills that can be brought together and leveraged with one another. And those are sort of, often we don't talk about that. We talk about it strictly in the monetary terms, but that is the huge part of benefit of an angel network that self-refers and grows as a group and as an entity. And that's been great. and is very replicable.
Thank you very much. Iman, can you comment on, you mentioned that you're going to grow, you have your first early stage investing here. They're sitting right here in the audience, very exciting. You're an angel to these two young women who demonstrated great technology capability and a growing network of clients. But what are you going to be looking at? You said you're going to be growing your network to 15, I think you said, more enterprises. What will you be looking for, since you're the one who's most local here to the Jordan audience? If we have women entrepreneurs, other entrepreneurs in the audience that you might consider investing in, what will you be looking for?
Actually, I will go to the Skype that happened between us. Do you remember that subject that we were talking about? We were talking about how we can get more women angels and to support more women. So we found that we get to idea that we can have the women that they have already the resources, but they are not into risk, or they don't have time to go and to invest and to follow up because they don't have maybe the business mentality, they have children, they have a lot of other things. So I went to my lawyer, and actually I asked him, how can we build an organization? And this organization collect money or resources from the women that they have the money, but they don't want to take responsibility or to throw money and that's it. And he told me that we can do that organization. So with such organization, we can have this money. At the same time, we invest for them, for the money that they have the resources. We can share as well with the women that they want support, they want to build their own business, and we part of it with a 40%. So if in case a company didn't succeed or something happened to that company and not going well, the other company in the same of the portfolio, so it doing well. So we can balance it from here to there. And we can study it. I'm a financial advisor, so I can do that. So that's the idea.
Great. So you're going to have something between a sort of a sidecar fund and a network where you're going to be centralizing, it sounds like, some of the functions of an angel network instead of requiring each individual angel to do their own thing. But what, in terms of companies, when you look out at companies, I know you told me the story of how you chose to invest in these young ladies, but as you're looking forward to investing in other companies, because we have entrepreneurs in the room here, what are the kinds of things you'll look for in a company that would make you decide you want to invest in them?
Actually, we are willing to invest with everyone who has the will. If she has the will and she believes in herself, and of course she has a new idea, something good, of course we will 100% we will support that.
Great, and you brought a lot of business cards with you, right? Because they're probably...
Would love to.
Okay, very good, fantastic, thank you. Thanks. Heather, you've already started a Women's Angel Network, and possibly you guys could collaborate here, but beyond that, Daphne shared with us her learning from growing it in the U.S. What observations do you have, and do you think that there's anything different that's needed here in the region to be successful?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So we've learned a lot actually in the last year just from the work that we've been doing, and it's actually harder than I thought it would be, in the sense that the entrepreneurs coming out of the incubators are great. They've gotten a lot of traction, but in terms of just some of the legal setup, so for example, investing in an offshore company for international investors is much preferable to investing in a local Jordanian company, because international investors don't want to have the local liability. And then there are also the foreign ownership restrictions in Jordan in terms of capital. So it makes it more challenging for international investors to come in. We actually have one of our companies here, Rama Kayali from Little Thinking Minds is our first investee, and she can explain to you the whole how to set up a BVI properly and move assets offshore and get approvals from different local authorities to do so. But it's difficult. I think you look at the average time frame in the U.S. with angel groups, and they're looking at 6 to 8 weeks. I think on average in terms of their timeline, and for us it's been 9 months. So there's a huge difference in timing, and that's something that of course affects returns, and also something called angel fatigue, where people get excited in the beginning when they've decided to invest in a deal and there's a lot of excitement in the room and everyone's putting their hands up to help out and wants to get involved. And then when you're having the same meeting over and over again, you're talking about, okay, where are we with the approvals in Jordan? You know, it gets a little bit tiring. So the angels lose engagement. And I think part of creating a cohesive structure is keeping the angels involved and engaged, and that comes from the pipeline and the deals that they're looking at and the companies and the entrepreneurs, because that's why they're there to begin with. They're not there just to meet and have coffee and it's not just a social club. I mean, it's an investment club where you're there to invest in companies that you hope will grow, and also to build something in the region and support women in doing so. On the good side, I think, you know, just to mention a positive as well, the number of companies that need angel investment, there's a huge number. I hear a lot of comments kind of made about pipeline and, you know, are these companies good and are they investable? But I actually really believe that there are far more companies that would benefit from angel capital, but we need more investors, and we need, I'd say, kind of smarter investors who can spend time and not just kind of opportunistically throw money at companies and see if they make it or not, because angel investors really need to be committed and they work in partnership with the entrepreneur. It's not kind of an investor entrepreneur conflict, but it's meant to be really a partnership, because the investors want to make sure that the company grows and they want to make sure that the company gets to the next level of investing, because that's how the angels will exit. And that's, I think, another question I'm still not sure about in the region, because we haven't had many exits. This morning we had the co-founder from Maktub speaking at the Endeavor breakfast, and we need another Maktub in the region. And this, I think, would help to create more angel investors, because whenever you've got a successful exit, people get interested and they think, okay, you really can make money on this, so I want to get involved.
Thank you. So we have about 10 minutes left, and
Let's throw it to the room.
okay. So I was going to say, think about your next, but if we already have questions, thank you, Hala, for you get to answer the first question if it's good for you, and so that we can take your questions here. So please, someone in the room, I think we have microphones coming around. Yeah, does someone have a microphone right there? I think this gentleman in the middle. Oh, okay. You give it to her at first, and then, sir, if you don't mind waiting. Thank you.
Hi, thanks for your speeches. I would like to ask, what do you think, in your opinions, are the main challenges that women face in our region? And maybe Ms. Iman can tell us, in her opinion, what are the main challenges for women in Jordan? Thank you.
So you were asking that of Iman? Is that what I heard?
Actually, for everyone.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you
yeah.
asked. Okay.
Maybe
The question is, what are the main challenges for women as angels in the region, or as
no,
entrepreneurs?
actually for women in general to succeed.
For women in general in the region?
Yeah, to succeed if they want to have their own businesses.
Okay.
I know, Ms. Iman, you were one of the you were chosen as one of the 10 powerful women in Jordan. So, what do you think are the main challenges that might face a woman that would take you like a role model?
So what are the challenges for women to succeed in the region?
Okay, actually, for the time being, I don't find a lot of challenges, but the challenge is inside ourselves. It's how we grow up. It's how they taught us. This is the most important challenge. It's not about the community around us as much as how we do believe. It's like I was sitting with a very lovely lady, and I was telling her, how do you believe that you get to this position? She said, I don't believe it. I said, why? She said, because I'm a woman. How should I be in such a position? So the most important and the most thing that we should change before we change something around us is ourselves. The belief that we grow, that we are not equal. So that's the most challenge I'm seeing around me. The second thing is when someone is coming and telling you, you cannot, you don't have to fight, you don't have to, you just prove by acting. Because they used to say that women talk a lot and they don't act. And they just like making things big, and it's a small things. So that just show them by acting, not by talking. So That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's great. Great. Sehala, you want to say something?
Well, maybe just to add on, I think generally there are two types of people in the world, irregardless of where they live. There are the people that like to point out the window when something is wrong in their life, and there are the people that take the mirror and face it and say, what can I do about this? And I think the latter type are entrepreneurs and people who make things happen. So I totally agree with Iman. It starts with ourselves. But I also am very well aware of that there are cultural issues to deal with. So my recommendation on that one is, step up into your power and act and believe in it, but have the dialogue in this country about why this is important for all. This is not women need help. I mean, in 1999, I was working on changing this in my country, Iceland, because even there, where we probably have more liberal values when it comes to the gender issues, we had issues with this. And so we had a dialogue about why this matters for all. This is not about helping women. As a matter of fact, the world needs the help of women. It's about asking women, step up and ask what you can do for the country or for the region, and have the conversation why that is good for all. It's not a zero-sum game, and just don't focus on the barriers. Focus on changing the mindset from within, and go do it. Take the soccer ball, somebody said yesterday when we were talking about it. Just take the soccer ball and run with it, or football, I would call it, and run with it. But have the dialogue about why you're not just running for yourself or for the women at large. You're running for the country. You're running for the region. You're creating something for all.
Thank you.
I just want to make one other comment, which one of the things that struck me in the past few days being here, coming from the United States. So the challenge in the United States is an enormous amount of technology going on. The biggest, hardest thing to find in the United States is engineering talent. And I, as a woman, the mother of 2 daughters, have spent so many years working philanthropically and otherwise to encourage women to stay in the sciences. And in the United States, you have to start when girls are 5, 6, 7, they're teenagers and they drop off, and the statistics are glaring of the number of women who pursue engineering careers. The thing that has struck me here in the last few days is the amount of raw talent that is here, that is people value a science education, and it's what the world needs. It's what puts a country at a global competitive advantage. And in the United States, that is one of the dialogues that is being had day in and day out, how the United States is not being competitively, not leveraging a potential advantage because people are not getting a science education, whether that's medical education, engineering education. And so to hear that over, whatever the number was, 60, in excess of 60% of the engineering degrees are awarded to women in this country is, I can't tell you how ironic that is. Coming from a place where there's capital, there's business and the skills to build companies and to sell them and do all that, and there is a dearth of engineering talent. And so it's to the point that Hala is making, it's not, yes, look within, but what you have to look at is awesome. So the question is how to then use it and and turn it into the marketplace and take advantage of it to build great companies. And that's an opportunity and advantage that you have that other countries are struggling to attain. So it's there for the taking.
Yeah, we even came up with the idea that we were going to start the Jordan Tech Corps to take all this excess talent here that's been trained and fill the global need for that very same kind of tech talent. So anyway, somebody here can take the idea and run with it. We would welcome it. Thank you, sir. Waiting a long time, very patient. Thank you.
Okay, this question might be outside of the box, but how does being an entrepreneur affect your relationship with your family and friends?
That's a great question. Yeah, so how does being an entrepreneur, and by the way, I'm sorry, you have...
I would like, what's your name from the States?
Me, Daphne?
Yeah. Yes, I would like you to answer it and compare it to Ms. Iman Mutlaq's answers since she's from the Middle East, please.
So I actually, I shouldn't say, I had a long career and I've always worked. I raised my children. Thankfully, I have a very nice husband. But it's been a long journey, and I've been responsible for parents, and it's exhausting. When I see, and I mentor a lot of young women who are going into business and starting their endeavors, And sometimes I look at them and I just get tired thinking about how hard and how much work it was to be an entrepreneur. But it was also incredibly, incredibly rewarding. And, you know, I spent 25 years of my life not sleeping more than 4 or 5 hours a night. That's the truth. But I believe that it's all doable. And it's not just that it's doable, it's very rewarding. And I would tell you that as the mother of 2 young adult daughters and their community of friends, I think that I've given them something that they wouldn't have gotten otherwise. Again, I know that the challenges are great, and to Khala's point, the cultural differences, certainly in the United States, it's more common now for women, and it's just an economic requirement because of the cost of living that it requires 2 incomes. That's the majority of what Americans do. But I think it's an awesome and important step forward for not just women, but for their families, for their communities, and for the society in general. So I'm not saying it isn't a challenge, but it's very doable, and it's important that it be done.
I also want to comment. So I was a serial entrepreneur with 6 companies, 5 successful exits, and over $200 million raised. Lived in the San Francisco Bay Area, where I always say entrepreneurship is a disease. Even if you sell your company, you never get rid of the disease. But I wanted to comment on a couple of things on that. First of all, when young women particularly, and I know we have a lot of young women in the audience, that's why I wanted to add this, think about the challenges that face them, whether they're looking at a career in the corporate world or whether they're looking at an entrepreneurial career, and I've had both. The important thing is to recognize the more excellent you're recognized as being, the harder you work early on in your career, the more options you will have when the time comes to decide about your family. So I was lucky enough that I'd built a career and was successful enough and frankly had the financial resources. And I came from a modest background. My family was an immigrant family in the United States. I worked my way through college. I did not grow up with a lot of wealth, but you know, myself, my brother, and my sister, we were all self-made. We all worked hard. We all pursued our different careers. And it's because of pursuing something with ambition and with striving for excellence that I think that I have the options. It's what I try to teach my children and so forth. So that's number one. Number two, and I think this is important because I'm really excited that many men have chosen to attend the session, and that is, for every woman, the single most important decision you will make in your life is who you choose as a life partner. Because in today's world, and particularly for younger women in your generation, first of all, my observation, I hope this is true in Jordan and in the region, it's certainly true in the United States, this generation, my kids and their peers are different. Their mentality is different. The fathers expect to be involved in their children's lives in a way that I don't think our fathers did. And so who you choose and your sense of partnership and your expectations of each other and how you will support each other is important. And then the last thing I want to mention, because we're talking about this as if it's all an option. And I remember my father died when I was very young. And my mother, who was a teacher, had no concept or clue about finances, about how to support herself. She was a teacher, so she made some money, but she didn't know how to. And she had a nervous breakdown when I was 21 years old. I had to leave my graduate school to come home to help, and that left such an impression on my mind that I never want to be in that position, to not be able to support myself, fend for myself and my family. So, you know, let's remember that most people in this world, not to speak of most women in the world, it's not an option. You have to find a way to support your family. And if you're lucky enough to be extremely successful and have resources beyond then to turn around, as really all these women on this panel have done, to then help others and pull them up after you, is the great thing to do. But you know, let's not forget that for many women, this is not just an option. This is something they have to do to support their families. So anyway, I felt compelled to add that, even though I'm the moderator. But thank you. Other questions?
This will have to be the last one, and we have to wrap up.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Seema Najjar, founder of ekeep.com. I just wanted to add on this. I think Iman didn't have the chance to actually say her experience as a mother as well. I recently, I was in the US in August through Heather's communication. Actually, she led me to this Fit Me program. And my husband also have German, so afterwards I went to Germany. And my experience here, and I've noticed something really important for women in the Middle East, which is we always see the grass is always greener in the other side. But when I was in the States, in my demo day in PitMe program, I was approached by these women. I was like, wow, how do you do it? You have 3 companies, you have, you know, 1 daughter and 1 on the way. How can you do it? And I was like, yeah, I have my father with me in the US, he's babysitting, and my uncle as well. So our opportunity in the Middle East is the support system we have through our families. This is really something that I think in the US and Germany, when I go visit my mother-in-law, it's like hell, believe me. It's like I'm all alone. There's no support whatsoever.
For many reasons.
She's helpful, don't get me wrong, she's German, but but the support we have, I just met my 3rd cousin here, and I'm sure she's gonna love babysitting my daughter, right? So we're like extended families that we can drop our children by and have the support that we have. And speaking of culture, I've been an entrepreneur for almost 10 years, and through all my companies, I always support youth or women in various things I do. But what I've noticed recently, specifically in tech, because my company is tech, is it's the equal that we have. We men and women, we have equal opportunities because it's something new. It's not like banking or anything that is already done and abused by men. So we've noticed, and I'm sure Rama also noticed, like Oasis 500, they didn't focus on women, but they have, I think, Sireen, correct me if I'm wrong, 50% of their 35% co-founded or founded by women. So also, me and Iman and her 2 new partners, we actually climbed Kilimanjaro early this year. And it's interesting to know that 80% of applicants were women.
Yes.
Out to climb Kilimanjaro. So the culture is changing due to all the support of the things that USAID or other initiatives like your Cartier initiative or Vital Voices they're doing to support women. So there is change and opportunity for the support, family support that we have that we should really leverage from. Thank you.
Great point. Thank you.
Thank you, Seema. And on that note, I'm going to announce a babysitting session workshop outside for all the fellas. Join
Thank
in.
you.
Shelley, I'll leave it to you to close.
Thank you. So just to wrap up here, I'm going to ask each of the panelists to say just 1 more minute of any final words, thoughts, or encouragements you have, particularly for anyone who is considering angel investing, men or women.
I think the point that was made is very important, which is it doesn't take a huge amount of wealth to become involved as an angel investor. I think it takes the will and it takes the interest, and people really need to remember that investment is not just about money. At this early stage, it's about sharing resources, it's about leveraging resources, it's about working together to help something grow, and that is true all over the world. And it has a term now, it's called angel investing. In some way, people have been doing that forever. Families have been supporting their offspring to start businesses. It now has it's been codified, and it has a language and a vocabulary about it. But the thing that it does perhaps have that's different than in the past is the notion, and this generation, to your point, Shelley, is that we live in a world enabled by technology to be more collaborative, and that lifting the boat for everybody, it doesn't have to be one or the other. You might give one company money and another company an introduction, and it works all together. And technology is a large reason for that. It's not isolated anymore. It's all interdependent, and we lift the boat together. Thank you.
My advice is for both. For entrepreneur who didn't start yet, it's time now to start. Just 3 things. Be creative. Get something new. Not anyone have it. Don't copy anyone. Just have your own personality in your work or the product that you have. Number 2, believe in yourself. Believe in yourself, because if you don't believe in yourself, no one will believe in you. If you don't have this self-confidence, no one will accept you. No one will like, you know, think about to have you as a partner. And my advice to the women that they have resources, we can do it all of us together, which is we can collect the fund and we can invest in Women Angel. And I'm doing that, and I would love to have most of them with me or all of them with me. Thank you.
So for entrepreneurs, I have three recommendations. One is find a partner or a co-founder, because it's hard to do it all yourself, and you want someone to share the risk and the journey with. And I see a lot of people here who try to do things themselves, and sometimes there are people doing very similar things, even in other countries. Perhaps you can find someone in Dubai or Egypt who's doing something similar and join forces with them so that you both have a better chance of succeeding. Number two is start your board meetings as soon as you have investors, third-party investors. A lot of entrepreneurs have started companies and have never had board meetings and don't leverage their boards and see it more as a liability than an asset. And then my third recommendation would be start relationships with investors early and be persistent. People like Seema, she's very persistent, and she constantly sends me emails and calls me on Skype, and it's actually good because there's a lot of noise in the region and it's hard to get focused sometimes. And if you start talking with investors and building relationships and getting to know them, then when you actually need to raise money, they'll be there to support you. For the angels in the room and the potential angel investors, find others you can work with because you'll see more deal flow. And we're happy to talk with you from Dubai and to help in Jordan in any way that we can. And I hope that more men and women get involved as angel investors because it's a lot of fun. And that's something that I don't know if we've talked about as much on the panel, but I have to say I love every angel investor who I meet. I really enjoy the type of people because there are people who want to help. There are people who want to be kind of the supporters of the sector and the young people, and they want to engage in a meaningful way. So I think they're really cool. So on that note.
Great, thank you so much. And Hala?
We all know the world is changing incredibly fast, and in that is an incredible opportunity for all of us. To me, Jordan is a bit of an oasis in the desert, if you will. Amazing raw talent here. Release the value. Release the value that you have by believing yourself and believing that you can be entrepreneurs, that you can be investors, and believing that that kind of ecosystem can be built here, and there's nothing stopping you. Because this is one marketplace where, and the reason you need to really tap into the women is because the new times call for creativity, innovation, collaboration, passion, compassion. These are the things that are in demand. These are feminine values. You cannot do it as men working with men. We have to do it as men and women working together, and then there is nothing stopping this country from experiencing incredible economic growth, and the world is yours.
Thank you, Hala, and thank you all.
Ladies, thank you very much. It was a really engaging conversation. We're going to jump directly into our final two sessions for the day before we go into the closing ceremony. Just a reminder that His Excellency the Prime Minister will be attending the closing ceremony at 5 o'clock p.m. So that'll be from 5 to 6. We'll have a closing plenary then. And we will also have something very exciting, which is the final results of the app challenge. So you're going to see a group of really impressive young students from schools around Jordan who have taken part in an app challenge, and we'll be giving out the results of